Meanwhile, the president refusing to answer questions from journalists after addressing ANC members and supporters outside the former home of the late ANC struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela Mandela in Soweto this afternoon. The president was there to mark what would have been her 86th birthday. Our politics editor, Lukhanyo, Calata, there he joins us now. Lukhanyo, good afternoon to you. We saw the president speak. What happened afterwards?
Stephen, good afternoon. Well, we saw him speak. We heard him speak about Eskom and him apologizing, in essence, to the hundreds or so, Women's League members that had attended, his address here. But then we set up, Stephen, hoping to get a couple of responses from him. Remember, the president, so far, he's only spoken about the Eskom crisis really either on stage at the Heritage event on Saturday, or again here on this truck behind me, or maybe he's then issued a statement, but he hasn't really spoken to us as the media. So we then set up hoping that he'll speak to us, and then he just completely ignored us, Stephen. His bodyguards just kind of rallied around him, and they prevented us from getting in our microphones in front of him. We were shouting, "Mr. President, Mr. President," and he just pretended that we as the media weren't even here, Stephen.
His main message, he spoke about Eskom. Also, it seemed there were sound problems with the public address system.
Yes, Stephen, he did unfortunately have some serious problems with the sound. There was some kind of echo or reverb on his microphone, so every time he tried to speak, it would bounce back, and it just made it a complete nightmare for him. He soldiered on quite bravely, though, telling those that had attended here that the problems at Eskom aren't new, but he can assure them that the government is working to try and solve the problems. He said that as the load shedding makes nobody happy, and that they are working on trying to address those issues. And then, unfortunately, at the end of it, completely ignored us. It was almost as if we weren't here, Stephen. And I have to say this, it was deliberate, because he saw us standing by his car. He heard us shouting, "Mr. President, Mr. President," and then he just completely ignored us, and it's deliberate, Stephen.
And Lukhanyo, what's so interesting about this is the president speaking today about Eskom, writing about Eskom in his newsletter, and yet he rushed back from the United Nations General Assembly in New York. He skipped that trip to the US to come and start to deal with the problems of load shedding. From what I can see, we still don't have a substantive statement from Cabinet about what's been decided.
Exactly, Stephen. We have not heard anything of real substance from the president or from Cabinet. As you correctly point out, he flew back in last week, Tuesday. He had meetings with Eskom executives Tuesday afternoon. He then had a virtual meeting with Cabinet on Wednesday. We were then assured that there would be a Cabinet meeting on Thursday morning. That Cabinet meeting was cancelled on Wednesday evening. And then we've been waiting. We've been waiting ever since for the president to say something. And, I will say this again. Last week I was ignored very much so by his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya. And it seems that this week it's the president that is now ignoring us as a country, refusing to outrightly come out and tell us what exactly the plan is with regards to Eskom. How are they going to fix these problems? Him saying and standing on a stage or on a platform where he does not take any questions around some of his utterances is just simply not good enough. And we as South Africans, we have to be able to call it out and say, "Mr. President, what you are doing is not enough. We need answers, and only you can provide those answers to us." Stephen?
Lukhanyo Calata, our political editor, I really appreciate the time. Thank you. Well, you can hear his frustration, I think the frustration we all feel around load shedding.